In this video, I just have a few more tips and tricks for those starting out solving big cubes. Okay, so in this video, I have some other random tips and tricks for people just starting out solving the 6x6 and 7x7. The first one is relating to the finger tricks and the grip that you should be using on the 6x6 and 7x7. So if you're used to solving 3x3 and kind of smaller puzzles like that, then it might take a little bit of time to get used to the physical, larger size of the 6x6 and 7x7, and particularly for doing things like regrips. They can be quite tricky. One thing that I do recommend to people, and this is something that I guess most of the top 7x7, 6x6 cubers do, is that being ambidextrous is a lot harder on the 6x6 and 7x7. So if you're switching from your left hand to your right hand all the time, then that's going to be quite tricky, because for the 6x6 and 7x7, it's kind of very important that you maintain a very stable grip, because if you're only aiming to turn, 2 layers at a time, and if your grip is unstable, then, you could try and turn 2 layers and accidentally turn 3 or things like that. So if you're trying to switch all over the place from, left hand to right hand very quickly in solves, you might have a little bit of trouble at the start. So for that reason, I recommend sticking to just one hand. So if you're right hand dominant, then try and do most of your centers using your right hand and right slices as opposed to the left hand. And even you can do this for edges as well, so don't do too many kind of left moves during your edge pairing. Another thing is during centers particularly, it's important to try and avoid doing kind of slice moves like this, as these can be quite tricky, particularly if you don't have a great 7x7 cube. Then trying to do a slice move like this can almost take a couple of seconds if you lock up or misalign other layers. So instead of doing single slice moves, try and just bring 3 layers along with it. That's a far more safe approach to solving pieces on the 7x7. One thing that I talk about a bit in 4x4 and 5x5 tutorials as you're getting faster is solving the centers on the bottom face, and that becomes a little bit trickier on the 7x7, so I think it's perfectly fine and actually a decent idea to store your centers either on the top face or on the front face. So that is, solve your centers into these positions. Obviously you'll need to do lots of rotations in between to pair up pieces, but just, storing them on the top or even the front when you're doing the last 4 centers is perfectly reasonable. One thing that beginners have trouble with is recognizing whether obliques are in the same orbit. So for example here, these 2 obliques are interchangeable, but when you're building, for example, the second 1x5, so not this innermost 1x5 bar, the one adjacent to it, you need to actually find 2 oblique pieces which are in different orbits. So here are just a couple of patterns that can help you with doing that. So one handy pattern is if we have this corner center and 2 obliques attached directly to it, and that means that these 2 are in different orbits. As you can see, if we move this one, it's over here, and this one is in this position. So this can be very, very handy. So all you need to do is just keep these together, pair up another inner corner center with an inner edge center, like that. Bring this one down. Then you'll have a 1x4, and all you need to do is move this other oblique out of the way and pair it up like that. Another tip is if you have 2 obliques directly opposite one another, so they're on 2 different sides but they're in the same kind of layer here, then that means they're in different orbits as well. So for example, if we have these 3 inner centers as part of our 1x5 bar, then all we need to do to solve these 2 with them is just do something like take one out, do a U2, put it back down, do a U2, and then R, like that. So those are 2 simple ways to figure out whether obliques are in the same orbit. If they're across from one another, directly across from one another, then they're in different orbits. And also if they surround a corner center or an outer corner center, such as in this position, like this, then they're also in different orbits. So those can be handy ways to have a look. So I think that for beginners, it can be handy to solve centers from the inside outwards, but let's say we're in a situation like this, where we've solved these first 2 inner 1x5 bars, and we have something like this, where 4 of another 1x5 bar are already completed for us, so 4 pieces are already solved, and all we need to do is just pair up this one, for example, moving it up here, and then slicing it across. This is a perfectly valid and definitely a better way of solving this center, so solving this outer bar next, as opposed to necessarily solving this second inner 1x5 bar. However, we can see here that for obvious reasons, solving, for example, this inner 1x5 bar and then these two outer 1x5 bars is not going to be great, because that means that if pieces get stuck in between them, then we'll need to do a slice move to bring them back out. And here we have another, piece stuck in between these two. So we would have to do another slice move to bring it out. And now all our pieces are, here, here, and here. So solving the inner 1x5 and then these two outer ones is not a great idea. And that's kind of the general principle is that you should try and build from the inside outwards, except where there are very easy cases. Another thing that can be useful is taking pieces out of a center that you're working on whilst you insert other pieces. So let's say, for example, here we've solved the yellow center. We have this 1x5 bar and this one, and we see these two pieces can form part of the next inner 1x5 bar. And if we do just RU2 R' like that, then we'll have to take these out anyway. So what we can do is do a U2 move, and now when we do an RU2 R', these two pieces will come out into the front. So things like that can be very efficient and save you a lot of time and moves. So when you start out doing edge pairing, both on the 6x6 but also more so on the 7x7, it can be very overwhelming trying to decide which edge to solve next, and sometimes you'll have massive pauses in between your edges, and something that can help with that is what's known as filtering. And I believe I discussed this in the 5x5 tutorials, but basically filtering is just picking a color, and it's most commonly white, and solving the first 4 edges on that color and potentially the next 4 edges on its opposite color, so yellow. So for example here, we don't see anything, nothing really jumps out at me hugely of what to solve next. And given that, for example, I've already solved this white and green, it might make sense to actually just go ahead and solve, for example, another white edge. So we've got this white and blue, and this way, all you need to look ahead for is just white stickers on these edges. You don't need to worry about anything else. You can just kind of follow and track where all of these white edge stickers are going around the cube. Not all of them, but just have a general idea. So, let's do this white one, this white one, this white one, and then the final white and blue one here. And then whilst I'm doing this white and blue, I'm looking at these other white ones for what to solve next, and that can really help with looking ahead. So for example, I see these white and red ones. So I'll go ahead, insert this white and red one, like that, and then keep looking ahead for the white and red, this one, like that, this one, and so on. And then once we get to the last edge, the look ahead becomes really, really easy, because literally all of the last edge pieces with white on them will be the one that you need to solve. So for example, here we've solved this one, and this one down here, and actually that's quite bad. I should put this one up to the top so that we're solving 3, so that we're solving the first 4 all on one side. But once we do this, literally all of these white edge stickers belong to the same edge. So it can be really easy to just, see this one, pair it up with those, like that, see this one, and see this one. So that makes look ahead easier, particularly for the last few edges, if you do this filtering technique. And you can also do it if you like for the next 4 edges. You can do the next 4 edges only looking at the yellow pieces. Obviously, it'll be a little bit harder at first because there's so many yellow edge pieces all around the cube. So for beginners, that's definitely something to try out. But I think in the long run, you do want to be color neutral and taking advantage of all of the easy possibilities that come up on the 6x6 and the 7x7. Another thing that I see from beginners during edge pairing sometimes is, let's say we have these two pieces like this and this one over here, so these blue and yellows, and sometimes I see people trying to literally just turn that slice only. So just grabbing the third layer and trying to finger trick it like that, and that can lead to all sorts of problems. It's very likely to misalign or lock up. So what I recommend doing is just using wide turns. So just moving wide move like that, and then another wide move with your other finger. So let's go again. So wide move of 2 layers with your left hand, and then wide move of 3 layers with your right hand, as opposed to trying to get in there and finger trick this really, really tiny layer like that.